Hello, comic book fans, and welcome to our special holiday episode of The Next Issue. I'm your host, The Power Trip, and today I'm going to be going over two different aspects of how the Christmas season affects comic books. A, gift giving, say getting a special graphic novel or so for the loved one, and B, the holiday specials themselves, which we actually don't see as many of them anymore, outside of the 90s, that is. And honestly, as I start to get into this, I'm going to go ahead and mention that I find that to be a little sad to me, because the holiday specials both kept a form of continuity. Usually, if any changes happened to any of the characters told in the short stories that these holiday specials presented, they were within a definitive realm of continuity. And second, it really brought an interest to kids, which comic books used to be mostly marketed towards children, obviously marketed towards adults as well, but definitely nowadays you get more books marketed towards the adult and less to the kids, which to me I feel it's not bad marketing, but I would like to see more books aimed at children out of the comic books that we see on the shelves nowadays. Because I mean, that's your long run fan there. You know, you're gonna have that child as your fan for a much longer time period as you're gonna have that adult, unless we just all become immortal one day thanks to the Dragon Balls. But the holiday specials definitely present some really nice short stories and instances for us to really get to see the fun of the characters in the holiday season. Whether it's the cheesy Superman or Spider Man saves Santa Claus, or the Ninja Turtles rescue him from the Shredder, to just seeing the characters around the holidays getting to be around their family and not have to always stop supervillains, to even seeing villains such as the Flash's rogues, which in the comics, at least pre New 52, were a little bit more. I don't know how to put it. They had more of a code about them, more of a moral compass, even though they were villains. And so they had their own aspect of family around the holidays, and even to a degree, the Flash would even give them some leeway around that time period. Now, as I mentioned, most holiday specials are just a bunch of short stories, but they do still, at least for the most part, keep within the realm of continuity. One of my favorite short stories out of a holiday special actually came from one of the Marvel ones, where Peter Parker had just been replaced by Ben Riley as the new Spider Man. And in one of the holiday specials, it reflected on the Human Torch sitting on top of, I believe it was the Statue of Liberty, waiting to exchange gifts with Peter. And Peter, I guess, not being a very great friend at the time, well, he did have a lot on his plate if you've ever followed the dreaded Clone Saga, but he didn't let a lot of his superhero friends know what had happened when him and Mary Jane had to move away, and Ben took over. Well, the first part of the story, most of it actually, is the Human Torch remembering the times where they first made this Christmas tradition to meet up Christmas morning on top of the Statue of Liberty and exchange gifts, and it was usually a brief pass by. It wasn't usually much of anything that lasted longer than, say, 2 minutes. But by the end of it, the Human Torch starts wondering what's going on and basically creates like a Spider-Man signal with his fire. And Ben Riley shows up in the new Spider-Man outfit and doesn't know what's going on. And for those of you who know who Ben Riley is, there's a reason the Human Torch thought it was still Peter, and I'm not going to really go into details about that. But Ben had to give an explanation as to what was going on. Seeing as how the Human Torch actually knew who Spider-Man really was, Ben felt more comfortable in this, and proceeded from there to keep their tradition going, but it was still a little new, but still a taste of the old. And these are some of the fun little aspects of the stories I like. Now, usually around the comics, around with comic books, you have the holiday specials, which are the one-shots. They have a bunch of short stories. And then you have the core books themselves will sometimes get their own holiday deal going. such as with the X-Men or Superman or any of them. And it's not really quite the Superman saves Santa. It's usually more along the lines of there's a big story arc going on, but they do a quick little holiday thing in the midst of it. Of like Clark has to zip in the middle of this battle with Bizarro that he's been having for 2 issues, and remember to buy Lois's Christmas present. But they usually throw some holiday twists in there too, and it's nice to see the artists actually put like holiday decorations on the streets and stuff. They really give you that aspect of, oh yeah, this is around the Christmas time, Christmas season for this issue. Another one of my favorites of that aspect of a holiday special was once again related to Spider-Man, and also happened in the 90s, and occurred with probably my favorite Marvel superhero ever, and that was Nate Gray, also known as X-Man. I'll go more into detail on that character another time, but it was definitely a fun little two-part crossover for the holidays that introduced these two characters together that later on, I don't think Marvel at the time realized how good these two characters would click together, because they didn't get to cross over that much, but when they did, there was definitely a kinship there that didn't really get touched on as much as I believe it probably should have. But Nate doesn't really have any family around, and so Peter kind of takes him in at the time, and Nate really enjoys this time because where he's from, he doesn't have all these, deep family aspects, not a whole lot of positive things going on, and so this was a really nice, hey, I see a person that's not got a lot going on at the moment and could really use a place to stay, some friends, and it's the holiday season. And of course, you have your typical, hey, superhero meets superhero that the two of them have never met before. Something happens, they start to have a little bit of a tussle, not really, but sort of. But unlike most of them where it turns into a full-on fight, this one just clears itself up really quickly. And it's definitely another one of those aspects that I really like on a story where it's not about the holidays, but it's a use of the holidays to help this story really drive the story along and introduce these two characters together that would normally not really have a reason to come across to one another. But it ends up becoming a really good story in the long run. Now, with that said, I would definitely recommend anyone that really, gets into this time of year to go out and find some of the past holiday specials, give them a try. It can be any of the actual like DC or Marvel or Archie Christmas specials or any from any of the comic book lines, to going back and if you like, say, the current IDW Transformers or DC Comics or any of the main comic line, any comic line really, going back and finding some of their holiday issues that they may have had, and giving them a try. They're a really good read, especially if you pick up a few of them, and once you're done opening presents, and if you, for those of us that we get a lot of games or something else that we may want to, or a movie to watch or something, we'll enjoy that. But when it comes time to just relax a little bit, and maybe we've gamed for a while, or we got to let the kids have the TV for a bit or something, we just want a little bit of time alone, it makes for a good read to sit down and relax to. It really does. Which leads to my next thing. Coming up to Christmas, I'll end off this episode on this. This is definitely the time of year to go and pick up some graphic novels. For those die-hard comic book fans, maybe you might want to look for a little bit more of a collectible thing to get for your significant other. A graded 9.8 comic, if you know what I mean. But for those of you that are just, that that special someone in your life is definitely into, say, Batman, or the new Ninja Turtles books, new Transformers books, any of these, the current seasons of Buffy, or any books going on, this is definitely a great time of year to pick up maybe a graphic novel collection of some of the books they're missing. If they are bigger collectors, going out and actually trying to find the books they're missing to help with their collection. If you are trying to get somebody into a certain comic, you can find some really good deals at several shops right now to pick up maybe the first graphic novel, the beginning stories, to really get them into it, give it a try. And you're not really out a lot of money, and unlike giving them, and here's the benefit, this is what I'm getting to on this, here's the benefit to getting them a graphic novel as opposed to getting them, say, issue number 1 of a book. Getting somebody that's not really into comics, or at least a certain comic that you're trying to introduce them to, they're not going to have that collector instinct on that book. If they're not into comics at all, they're obviously not big into collecting comic books in general right off the bat. If they are just not into that particular comic line, then getting them that number 1 issue it's a nice sentiment. They may understand that, but it's still, even if they sit down and read it, they're only getting that first issue, which anyone knows is only the first chapter of a story, depending on if it's a 6-issue story or a 12-issue story. But if you get them a graphic novel to get them going, it doesn't matter if it's somebody that's just getting into comics or getting into that particular genre or style or character, you're getting them the story. And that gives them a true opportunity to understand and really immerse themselves into the environment you're wanting to introduce them to. And that's a huge thing. If you're really wanting someone to enjoy this Christmas gift, then that would be the aspect to go for. And like I said, there you can find some really good deals on graphic novels right now. But as far as my push on graphic novels as Christmas presents this year, that's a huge one to me. If you're a big DC fan, I would definitely suggest books like Batman Hush. I'm a huge 90s guy, so Nightfall is always one of my favorites. So that one's kind of broken up into 3 big chapters. So Hush would probably be a better one for Batman fans. If you're trying to get them into the newer stuff, I would say the first graphic novels of the New 52, either the Detective Comics or Batman books, is a good start. Same with the Superman books or any of the New 52 books. If they're just looking for something a little bit more fun, Harley Quinn graphic novels are really good there. There's also Harley's got her Christmas special, I believe, that came out actually last year, and they may have one coming out this year as well, but that's another good one to pick up. Marvel's got some really good holiday specials and books and graphic novels again too. Marvel's got a lot of different jumping on points as well, much like DC. If you haven't tried the IDW Ninja Turtles or Transformers series, those are both really good. Though I will make the mention for Transformers that while it kind of starts off after some epic things have occurred, starting them off at the beginnings of Robots in Disguise and More Than Meets the Eye is probably the best jumping on point unless you are looking to spend about $60 per graphic novel, because the parts of the series that happened before those 2 series began are I won't say very expensive, but they're definitely a little pricier than the $20 graphic novels you're used to seeing. But if you want to spend that $60 and get them into it from the beginning, and you know they're going to like Transformers and whatnot, then go that route. But these are my suggestions for Christmas presents, comic book wise, for the holiday season. And with that, I'm going to mention thank you for listening to me all this time since we started here on the Culture Cache. And I really appreciate it. We all really appreciate it. And from me and mine to all of you, I wish you a happy holidays, a Merry Christmas for me personally. And here's hoping to several more years of getting to do this with you guys. I've got some big plans rolling down the line. Things are going to be changing. It's not always going to be this podcast style that you've gotten accustomed to with me. I've got some really fun ideas coming up, comic book wise, and I think you're going to enjoy them. But I'll touch a little bit more on that with my New Year's special here in a few weeks, as I recap all the big moments in comic books this year and give you some hints of what's coming up the next year. Now, as one last Christmas present to you guys, I will give you a little tease of the next two episodes you're going to be getting, and the reason why I'm actually doing my Christmas episode this week. The next couple of weeks, we're going to be covering the newer books in the Star Wars universe. Getting you ready for The Force Awakens, and I hope you're ready for that. I know every time I think I am, I find out I may not be quite as ready as I thought I was, but that's a good thing. I'll see you all next week for the next issue.